say congratulations on this brand new album.
Thank you.
So, mate, I guess to start off with, what led you to get back into the Massacre fold once again and get active straight away with an album as well?
Well, I've been I've been active the last, 16 years doing my other bands, which are all recording projects, Bonar, the Grotesquerie, the Skeletal. There's a bunch of stuff I've been doing. But basically what happened was back in 2016, the end of 2016, Rick actually got in contact with me, asked me if I would come and he had a band called The End and asked me if I'd come on stage and do a couple Massacre songs live with them. I said, well, let me feel it out first. First, let me meet with you, make sure it's like in a public place, not a back alley, so I didn't want to get stabbed in the kidney or something. So I met with them at a pub and just to feel it out and see how it was going to go. And because I knew for years he was talking shit about me, so I wanted to see how it was going to go. And it went pretty well. And then we did the show, and it went pretty well. And then he was all, this feels good. We should do this more. We should do this, take this serious. I said, okay. And that was back in December of 2016. And he asked me to come to a meeting. It was funny. He asked me to come to a meeting at his warehouse where his other band was rehearsing. And I did. And, they took a couple of photos that night on the phone. And the next day, Rick posted it on Blabbermouth that I was back in Massacre. It wasn't even like it was just kind of like a thing, bam. And it was all plastered all over Blabbermouth. And then the next thing you know, it started a controversy because then Terry Butler, unfortunately, was like, no, you guys can't call yourself Massacre. I own the trademark, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I just basically didn't say anything out loud. I said, okay, I have a lawyer. I've had a lawyer for a couple of years. I said, let my lawyer check into it, see if this is real. And it went for a couple of years. And the reason it went for a couple of years is because you can't just decide to trademark something out of the blue and get it the next day. It doesn't work like that. And so while all this was going down, I was still talking to Rick and everything. And I said, let's this was fun going on stage and doing this. Let's take it because, for real. But during that time, that was the name wars going on. That was all through 2017, actually. And we were called Massacre X. That was the bass players at the time, Michael Grimm. It was his idea. And then that didn't really work. And then a promoter said, oh, you guys should just call yourselves Gods of Death. So we were Gods of Death for I think maybe 2 months and all. That was it. And then, but during this whole entire time, my lawyer was really working on, finding about the name, if the name was really trademarked. And then he got in touch with me. He said, no, it's not. It was a bluff. And I told him, okay, well, let's do it for real. Let's trademark it for real. But it's one of those things where you you have to let the law handle it.
Yeah.
And it's a thing where it's the law and it's America and it's the lawyers. So it took a long time. It was just like I would go months and ask my lawyer, have you heard anything? He's like, no, this stuff takes time. Just be patient. Be patient. That's all I kept hearing from my lawyer. It takes time. Be patient. And it literally took almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was not until, this whole time we were working it and trying to take it serious. And it took so long because it didn't really happen until November of 2018 is when my lawyer goes, congratulations, it's now yours. So it took that long. And this whole time, we were keep staying kind of quiet, kind of remaining working. But also that ended up kind of being a long period of time. And unfortunately, because it took so long and it seemed like a down time and it was really hard to get anything booked, when we finally did start getting booked, which was literally in 2019, we started going out and playing again. But I felt at that time, and I'm not speaking for him. I don't know what was going through his mind, and I still don't to this day know what Rick thinks. But it just seemed to me that he didn't care anymore. By the time we started playing live, he didn't really, really care at all. I mean, there was times we were going to rehearsal, and we were wasting hours with him just sitting there getting stoned or drunk. And it was like, we're supposed to be working on music. And the same thing was going across live. It was coming across live that he just didn't really care. And we approached him, and I said, hey, man, we got to really take this serious. You've got to have other people you have to consider. It's not just about yourself. There's me, and there's Mike Borders now back in the band, and the drummer. You really should take things, serious, because we're looking at this as a serious thing. And he kind of laughed it off. And then after about a week after that, we played a couple more shows, and it was just getting to the point where he just didn't care. And then I approached him again, and he's like, okay, I quit. And I was like, really? And we had stuff booked. We had shows booked in Europe and Germany. We had stuff in South America. He just quit. So I was like, oh, God, they got to get somebody quickly. So we, hurried up, got a couple guys in the band and finished up those shows. And during that time, I was in talks with Nuclear Blast because I was really taking the band serious and was really wanting to try to get it serious. And those guys didn't work out again. Another couple guys didn't work out. They came in and they were like they were basically asked to come in to join for the shows, and then they kind of said, "Oh, we rewrote the album." One day we just showed up. Me and Mike Porter showed up, and they said, "We have the album written." And we're like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, we wrote the whole album." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't work like that, guys. This is a group thing. It has to be an effort with everybody. It doesn't just not about you guys." And that kind of went bad. That went south. And finally I said, I have got to get real guys that come in and do this for real. I've got to bring Massacre back to what it really stands, because Massacre's had such a convoluted, messed up history. And I was like, I've got to do it right. I've got to do it right. And I worked with the guys I've been working with for years, and that's finally how it turned out. Actually, it was my wife's suggestion, believe it or not. As I was looking for members, and my wife's like, "Why are you looking for people when you have people that you've worked with for years that are the perfect people?" And that's what. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what was it like getting together then with that group of people that you knew so well and getting into the studio with them? What was that like?
It was great because, for one, everyone that I picked, Roga Johansson, Johnny Pedersen, Scott Fairfax, even Brian Jarr, I've all worked with at different times in different projects and bands. And also, the key element was every one of these guys are Massacre fans. They're not just guys that play death metal. They actually grew up listening to Massacre. And going back to the demo eras all the way to the 80s, they grew up listening to it and being fans of it. So when I approached them and asked them about it, they were all really excited to do it. They were all like, "Yes, we'll do it, no problem." And then it was such an easy way when everyone was on board. It literally was the easiest I've ever done any band. It was so easy because once everybody knew what they were going to do, and once guitar riffs started coming from Roga, and guitar riffs started coming from Johnny, and we would do stuff like this. We do Zoom meetings, actually on video a lot, and we would just talk about, okay, what's cool, what's not, what's going to work, what's not, and it went so quickly because there was no egos involved. Nobody had an ego, and everybody was doing it for the sake of the band. Everyone said, we've got to make Massacre, we've got to bring Massacre back what it deserves to be. That's what everyone's attitude was. And so it was very comforting. It was like I said, it's the best experience I've had working in a band because everyone was on board and there was no egos clashing. There was no problem. Everybody wanted to bring their best into the band. So that was great.
And what kind of things did you find were inspiring the music at the time as well? I mean, we have been living in pretty crazy times, and you'd just been through crazy times with the band as well. What kind of things were inspiring the music when you first started to write again?
I think what inspires the music for everybody is to retain old school death metal, because I hate to say old school death metal. That's kind of like a term now that you have to say because death metal has so many different layers and subgenres now. But that was the main thing, is we wanted to kind of we all said, look, we've got to bring that sound back. That's that late 80s, early 90s sort of style back, and make it a resurgence.
And with the lyrics as well, what kind of things were inspiring that? Because I know that with the lyrics of your band, you get very deep with the lyrics. What were some of the things that were inspiring the lyrics at the time?
Well, I base Massacre lyrics mainly off of H.P. Lovecraft, but H.P. Lovecraft is sort of kind of like my foundation for my lyrics.
Yeah.
But I've always I'm a misanthrope, and I'm literally, by the definition of a misanthrope, I hate humanity, and I find a lot of the same kind of, when I read Lovecraft, I find that same sort of misanthropic kind of underlining stories in his stories. I find that, and I can relate with it, not so much with his human characters, but with the monsters and gods and elder things in his stories. They always represent sort of this kind of where they don't really look at humans as kind of like equals or anything. They kind of we're looked at as like ants, how we look at insects.
Yep.
And that's kind of how, like, when I read Lovecraft the first time, I could relate more with the monsters than I could with the human characters. And besides, all the human characters in Lovecraft anyways end up dead or insane. So that's another thing about Lovecraft that I like. So it's very bleak. So I'm a bleak person, I guess, by nature, being a cynic and being a misanthrope. So I use pretty much Lovecraft to kind of express my misanthropy, but I'm also sarcastic. And so I have sort of sarcastic ways to kind of like express. I'll interweave things that kind of happened in my real life in the lyrics.
What do you feel about the Lovecraft resurgence at the moment? We've got a TV show, we've had a couple of movies come out the last couple of years that have been based on his work as well. What have you thought of them, being a really big Lovecraft fan yourself?
I really like the color Out of Space, or color. That was the recent. I think Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. It was a little different than the actual Lovecraft story, but it really hit some marks that were really good. I also watched Lovecraft Country. I saw it, and I was like, it was more based on if Lovecraft was basing his stuff off of real stuff. So I don't know. I've always been a Lovecraft fan all the way going back to the 80s when I started picking up the paperbacks of the reprints of his stuff. That Del Rey, there was a book company called Del Rey that put those out. And I've kind of always had that Lovecraft kind of like, I love Gothic horror. I also read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. So that kind of stuff is always my favorite. Bram Stoker's Dracula is something that I read almost every year, once in a while, even Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I love Gothic horror and stuff like that, because it has, I guess, it's not just, gore. It's more about atmosphere and about aesthetics and stuff like that. So I'm very into that kind of atmosphere and dark morbidity and stuff like that. So, but what I think the Lovecraft stuff coming back, I just think everything has a resurgence.
Yeah. And
Lovecraft's one of those things that are just coming back because we've kind of gone through all we've done, and slashers are coming back now too, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
So we're in that resurgence where slashers are coming back, and this stuff was prevalent in the 80s. Which was really funny, and you look at it, the horror movie genre that's coming out now with Lovecraft stuff and the slasher stuff was stuff that was prevalent in the 80s, because the 80s had your slasher stuff. It had your Lovecraft stuff with all the Stuart Gordon films like Reanimator, From Beyond, everything that Stuart Gordon was doing that was very Lovecraft based. So it's coming back after that 30-year kind of cycle. And ironically, death metal is also coming back after that 30-year cycle, the old school sounding style of death metal.
Definitely. And what's your plans now going ahead with this album coming out? A lot of people out there may even be discovering the band for the first time as well. What's your plans now? Are you going to get out there and do some shows now everything's opening back up?
Yeah, we're looking at that right now. We currently have some shows in the States right now set up. One coming up in Atlanta, another one in Florida, and then one in New York next year. Unfortunately, every time we get something set up, we get told, oh, it's got rescheduled or it's got canceled or because of the COVID thing. And every country, unfortunately, has different rules. We just got told that some of the EU shows are now getting closed again. And I'm like, oh, man, again? It's like, we just rescheduled everything last year, and now it's getting pushed back again. So it's kind of a waiting game.
Yeah.
But we do have. I'm working with a live lineup. I've got a couple guys here that are friends of mine that are going to help out because it's kind of hard. I knew the studio lineup might not necessarily be the touring lineup because of guys being in Sweden, guys being in Norway, and stuff like that, and in the UK, and having all of them having their own bands. But it was important to get a good album out. But Johnny has said that if we come to any time in Europe, he's going to join us in Europe. So Johnny will definitely be our guitar player, our second guitar player in Europe. But as far as guys here in the States, we have a couple guys that are helping us out now for these shows that are coming up. So it's that whole, waiting game, and then going to play the shows that are confirmed and then see what's going to either reschedule but in the same sense, in the same time, we've got new music that we're working on. We've got already a EP that's finished and we already recorded, ready to come out. We're working on another self-released single that'll be coming out probably in January, I would think. And we have other special kind of things coming out. One thing that's coming out, I kind of said this the other day on an interview, so I think I can say this now. That's special, that's going to be just download only on our own Bandcamp page, is this Halloween, we have a special Halloween song that's coming out.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that's going to be for fans that want. So we've got constantly new music that we're working on and writing, and we're always in this writing phase. Actually, we've got I think we have 5 or 6 new songs for the next album already in the works. I was actually currently working on something just before we started this meeting. So,
well, mate, we cannot wait to hear the new music, and we also hope that this means now that we're opening them up back here in Australia, that you might get down to Australia for a tour sometime in the not too distant future as well.
That is definitely a dream of mine. I've always wanted to come to Australia. I've never been there, so I've told everybody, I've been to Europe enough. I mean, I'm sure I don't want to say that for the European fans, but I've been there so many times. I've been to Germany so many times. It's almost like I love it. I love going there, but I've never been to that side of the planet. I've never been down under. I've always wanted to go to Australia. I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. I've never been to Asia, and I'm part Asian, so it's like really weird. Yep. I've always wanted to go to Japan and all that stuff, and I'm hoping that I was really hoping that this was going to be the time I get to go. So I do hope the world opens back up, just like everybody else is hoping. We're all sitting on pins and needles and hoping. I'm one of those people that I did get vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated, so I'm whatever. I'm ready to go. I'm not going to tell anyone to get it or not to get it. I'm not going to be preachy, but I'm ready to go. And all the guys in my band are all we got the jab, so we're ready to go. So there's nothing holding us back other than regulations. Yep,
I'm the same, fully vaccinated, and we get out of lockdown after 220 something days of lockdown tonight. So
oh, that's awesome, because I was wondering, I know it was really bad. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything, but man, I heard stuff in Australia and I was like, man, that's like the most locked down place ever. It's like, I don't want to say anything about your government, but you guys are really locked down, and I felt really bad for people. I was like, man, that's almost totalitarianism. That's like something you've seen in a movie.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was I was like, are you serious? They can't go anywhere? And it's like, I was like, no, this can't be real. I mean, it's so surreal that, I mean, what's going on is so surreal, especially when I hear stuff in Australia, and I'm like, they're really locked down that hard?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not laughing at it. I'm just amazed that it's so bad, but I'm glad to hear that it's finally going to open up tonight. That's amazing. I'm happy for you guys. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think the hardest part for me is I'm just within city limits, so 5 kilometers down the road, they've had freedom the entire time. So yeah, it's been weird. But mate, again, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. Congratulations on the brand new album. And to finish off, is there anything you'd like to say to your Aussie fans out there before they get a chance to listen to the album?
I really appreciate everyone that is still a fan, that's still going to follow Massacre. I really think that they will all, if you're a Massacre fan, especially the old Massacre, I think you'll be very pleased with what this album is going to bring, because I really did my best to really give you guys fan service. I mean, it's like anime. It's the tits and ass shaking in anime. It is total fan service. But I did my best to bring the best team I could together to bring the best album I could possibly. A proper album, I should say. I guess you could say. I will always say that this is the proper return. And it's the Resurgence. It's literally the Resurgence. Resurgence is just not just the name of the album. It's the whole attitude of the album.
Definitely.
So I want to thank all the fans down there.
Awesome. Well, Cam,